You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News for Monday, August the 31st. Oh, sorry, make that September the 1st. That's right, September is here already. You're catching us either on Facebook or YouTube, maybe at LinkedIn or at our website, paceradio.net, and at 420pace.ca. Today's a holiday, so I thought I would try something new. All right, first story for today comes to us from stratcan.com. OCS releases second annual impact report highlighting progress, future plans. The OCS has unveiled its newest social impact detailing and advancements made through a social responsibility platform. The report emphasizes the OCS collaborative efforts with employees, communities, and industry stakeholders to cultivate a more inclusive and responsible cannabis sector in Ontario. The annual report, Growing Together, Partnerships, Progress and Possibility, Social Impact Report 2024-2025, highlights the OCS commitment to several key values, including teamwork, customer focus, forward thinking, and pride in service. The first was released in 2024. The highlight in the report significant investments OCS made across various social impact initiatives. In public education, over $2.8 million was allocated to promote responsible use and awareness of the legal market. Industry sponsorships, $557,000, 349. Supported cannabis-related events. Community and research projects, $523,000 was funded through the Social Impact Fund. Equity deserving groups, $356,000 was dedicated to boosting cannabis brands, and $238,000 went to supporting events for equity deserving communities. Environmental initiatives, $67,000 was invested in studying the impacts of the cannabis industry and OCS operations. The report also provides a 3 years in review, that's from 2021 to 2024, highlighting more than $4.6 million spent on creating a more equitable and informed Ontario. Now, the report, just so you know, the full report can be read at the OCS Social Impact Report page. All right, so there you go. We move on to our next story of the day. Headline there from Cannabis Business Times. 9 U.S. lawmakers urge Trump to reject cannabis rescheduling. Now, under the advisement of the nation's top prohibitionists, 9 Republican U.S. House leaders or lawmakers sent the Trump administration a letter on August the 28th urging the Department of Justice to kill cannabis rescheduling proposal. The letter, spearheaded by Rep. Pete Sessions, and he's from Republican from Texas, and orchestrated in part by Smart Approaches to Marijuana, which is SAM, President and CEO Kevin Sept, was addressed to Attorney General Pam Bondi and copied to President Donald Trump. The group says, "We write to urge you to reject the Biden administration's corrupt and flawed recommendation to reclassify cannabis as a Schedule 2 or Schedule 3 drug. Rescheduling would send a message to kids that marijuana is not harmful and allow big marijuana and foreign drug cartels to get billions per year in federal tax breaks. Now, the 9 GOP letter writers suggested that moving cannabis to Schedule 3 would provide tax breaks to illegal cannabis dispensaries and drug cartels to the tune of $2 billion a year. They wrote, Tax Code Section 280E prevents drug traffickers who are selling Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 narcotics from expensing business deductions and getting tax credits. This is common sense law, they say, but the authors of it in 1982 never could have predicted that federally illegal drug sales would be sanctioned under state law without interference. Now, if cannabis is made Schedule 3, these illegal actors will get billions in tax write-offs for marketing their addictive drugs, they say. Now, Sessions' signature was accompanied by Reps Andy Harris, Robert Alderholt, Chip Roy, Paul Gosar, Blake Moore, Gary Palmer, and David Rouser and Mary Miller. All of them are Republicans. Now, Smart Approaches, as I said, which is Sam, their president, Kevin Sabet, said in a press release, President Donald Trump is laser focused on getting drugs off the streets. Rescheduling would set back those efforts. Rejecting, reclassifying cannabis aligns with the president's priorities of combating China and narco-terrorist cartels. Taking a step fulfilling George Soros' long life goal of making drugs legal will not make America great again. Now the 9 GOP lawmakers reject the plant's medical value. They wrote, marijuana supporters argue that marijuana has no business being in the same drug schedule as heroin, but their argument relies on a misunderstanding of the drug scheduling system. Drug scheduling is not a harm index. Instead, drug scheduling weighs both potential for abuse and accepted medical value of a specific drug. Marijuana, different than heroin, still has the potential for abuse and no scientifically proven medical value. Therefore, rescheduling cannabis would not only be objectively wrong, but it would also imply to our children that cannabis is safe. They couldn't be further from the truth. This is what they wrote. This is what the 9 GOP lawmakers wrote. So there you go. Not a good sign. Not a good sign. But our next story, it gives us some hope. That's all I can say. This one also comes from the Cannabis Business Times at cannabisbusinesstimes.com. Headline says, 40 House Democrats introduce bill to federally legalize cannabis. That Rep. Jerry Nadler, one of the top Democrats serving on the U.S. House Judiciary Committee, reintroduced the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act on August 29th. The 91-page legislation, now in its fourth rendition, would federally legalize cannabis by removing it entirely from the Controlled Substances Act. Yes, under Nader's vision, not only would cannabis be decriminalized, but the MORE Act also intends to provide expungements for individuals with certain cannabis-related offenses, as well as create reinvestment opportunities for those most affected by prohibition policies. Nadler says in a press release, as more states continue to legalize marijuana and public support increases, federal laws must catch up and reverse failed policies criminalizing cannabis. It is long past time to decriminalize marijuana at the federal level, expunge marijuana convictions, and facilitate resentencing while reinvesting in the communities most adversely impacted by the war on drugs. The U.S. House twice passed versions of the MORE Act, most recently in April of 2022, when lawmakers cast a partisan vote 220 to 204 entirely along party lines. But it's never made it into law. Nadler first introduced the MORE Act in 2019 when he had helped advance the legislation as then chair of the House Judiciary Committee. The legislation attracted a 228 to 164 vote for passage in the final month of the 116th Congress. However, Jim Jordan, yet again another Republican, as the current chair of the Judiciary Committee, remains a blockade for the legislation's advancement this Congress. He voted against the MORE Act in 2020 and 2022. Now, the NORML's director, political director, Morgan Fox says, as states continue to move away from their failed experiments with cannabis prohibition, it is incumbent on Congress to resolve the growing conflict between state and federal law and do everything it can to repair the damage caused by nearly a century of disastrous criminalization policies. The legislation embodies the wishes of more than 2/3 of the American public and will create a federal cannabis framework that respects states' rights and is focused on science, pragmatism, and justice. Now, according to Nadler's office, the MORE Act will also decriminalize cannabis at the federal level by removing the substance from the Controlled Substances Act. This applies retroactively to prior and pending convictions and enables states to set their own policy. It requires federal courts to expunge prior convictions, allows prior offenders to request expungement, and requires courts, on motion, to conduct resentencing hearings for those still under supervision. Authorizes the assessment of a 5% sales tax on marijuana and marijuana products to create an opportunity trust fund, which includes 3 grant programs. Number 1, the Community Reinvestment Grant Program. It would provide services to the individuals most adversely impacted by the war on drugs, including job training, reentry services, legal aid, literacy programs, and youth recreation, mentoring, and substance use treatment. Number 2, the Cannabis Opportunity Grant Program, which will provide funds for loans to assist small businesses in the cannabis industry that are owned and controlled by socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. And number 3, the Equitable Licensing Grant Program, which will provide funds for programs that minimize barriers to marijuana licensing and employment for the individuals most adversely impacted by the war on drugs. Now, Nadler's MORE Act also opens up Small Businesses Administration's funding for legitimate cannabis-related businesses and service providers, provides non-discrimination protections for marijuana use or possession and for prior convictions for a marijuana offense, prohibits the denial of any federal public benefit, including housing, based on the use or possession of cannabis or prior convictions for a cannabis offense, provides that the use of or possession of cannabis or prior conviction for cannabis offense will have no adverse impact under the immigration laws, and it would require the Bureau of Labor Statistics to collect data on the demographics of the industry to ensure people of color and those who are economically disadvantaged are participating in the industry. Now, you got a choice, people. You got something like this, the MORE Act, that's being presented through Nadler and the Democrats. Or you got rescheduling from 1 to 3. 3 would help with research. Yes, it does. And 3 would help businesses. But this does all that. Legalization can do all that. Remove it from the CDSA and legalize it federally. It's the only way. As far as I'm concerned, that's the only way to go. So, all right, on to my last story of the day. This one comes to me from Marijuana Moment. Headline says, why are more religious groups using psychedelics as spiritual sacraments? Good question. I wondered the same thing. The push to legalize psychedelics in America is not new. What distinguishes the latest round of advocacy, however, is its backing by a holy trinity of supporters, some scientists, politicians, and clergy. Several religious groups have historically used psychedelics for sacred healing. Some clergy who have been exposed to these medicines in the past few years are advocating their use for gaining mystical insights. There are several kinds of psychedelics, classical psychedelics including compounds such as LSD, magic mushrooms, and mescaline, which comes derived from peyote and San Pedro cacti. Another psychedelic, DMT, ayahuasca, and other plants. Now beyond the classic category, other psychoactive compounds sometimes grouped with psychedelics include substances such as MDMA, a class of psychoactive drugs that can induce feelings of love, empathy, and correctiveness, and others. Now, a 2021 study on MDMA showed a 67% reduction of PDS symptoms after 3 sessions of MDMA therapy. While the study has a limited sample size of 104, it marked a turning point in how the psychologists understood MDMA as a potential healing modality. Now, several mental health practitioners and scientists have been staunch advocates of psychedelic-assisted therapy based on this research. What is somewhat new, however, is the addition of a handful of high-profile clergy to the list of supporters. A recent study published by the New York University and Johns Hopkins University highlights a number of religious practitioners ranging from Episcopal ministers to Catholic priests, rabbis, and Zen monks. 24 of the 29 participants made the case that psychedelics can lead to profound spiritual experiences. A May 2025 article in the New Yorker noted that several of the clergy who participated in the New York University Johns Hopkins study went on to become vocal advocates for psychedelics as spiritual medicine. While the sample size was small and heavily composed of Christian religious leaders, the findings are noteworthy. Some 96% of study participants described the use of psychedelics as one of the top 5 most spiritually significant experiences of their lives. Leaders and members of the churches that use psychedelics as sacraments describe the role of these substances as facilitating a deeper connection with the divine. The psychedelics are offered at the beginning of weekly services by the religious leaders, and then the congregants move into singing, chanting, or prayer. Several leaders of such churches have described the role of the psychedelics as facilitating a deeper focus on God for longer periods of time. Most mental health practitioners and advocates of these medicines suggest that they may be taken under the care of medical and spiritual professionals who have trained in administrating, facilitating preparation and aftercare for psychedelic use. Shamans and indigenous practitioners have long regarded these substances as sacred medicines and used them for healing. Modern-day science is confirming some of their benefits in support of future treatments of trauma and addiction. Moreover, the mystical experiences that these medicines offer as pathways to connect people to the divine are profound. Wow. There you go. Wow. All right. That's our news report for Monday, September the 1st. Thanks to our sponsors, Limestone City, Hydroponics.ca, At-Eze.ca, and to the Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. And also, thank you to you for tuning in and watching. And as I always say, don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate. Thank you, and we'll see you on Thursday. Bye-bye.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network, here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.